Hi guys, it's Alyssa and welcome back to my channel, The Divine Venus, where I am putting out a video every day in the month of January, possibly the whole year. So I've never done this before, a daily video, but I'm really excited because I have so much content coming for you. And so if you're into that, stick around. But today we are talking about astrocartography. I wanted to do this video a couple months ago, but I've been sick. I've been sick like it's a personality trait. Anyway, I ended up tweeting about it instead, but I really wanted to give you guys the whole spiel of astrocartography. So if you do not know anything, let's just pretend like we know nothing about astrology. You have something called a natal chart or your birth chart. And this is what happens when you were born. All the planets and the stars align for you. When you move across the world, these lines shift. Okay, and the lines we're talking about are the ascendant, the descendant, the medium coli, and the imum coli, or the midheaven and the nadir. Ascendant is another name for rising, if you've heard that. Okay, all of those. When planets in your chart move to those lines, when you travel, you start to experience that planetary energy more. If I am from Chicago, Illinois, I am going to be experiencing my birth chart as it is in Chicago. Well, I'm actually from Elk Grove Village, so that's besides the point. If I moved to, say, Texas, Austin, Texas, which I did, I got Venus moved to my descendant. So I was on my Venus line because my personal Venus moved over and became an energy. I live in Los Angeles right now. And while I'm here, I actually have something called crossing Jupiter and Saturn because I have Jupiter on my rising and Saturn on my midheaven here. I moved here on purpose because when you follow astrocartography, you kind of want to look at where you've got the best energy for you and for your birth chart in order to achieve the most amount of success, happiness, joy, etc. The lines are going to be different for every single person. Not everybody is going to be feeling great in a Saturn crossing Jupiter situation like me. I did not enjoy my Venus line, but a lot of people really do. It very much depends on the energy you want to be in. There is one main way to get your energetic profile in astrocartography, and that is on astro.com. I think that there are other websites, but I always follow astro.com. Okay, now to explain how you're going to do this, you probably want to go on a computer, but you can definitely go on your phone as well. It's not really a big deal. It's just a little bit easier from your computer. And you're going to go to astro.com, click on this place that says free horoscopes, and then go, and then go to AstroClick Travel. Now, when you go to AstroClick Travel, if you need to add a new person, this is what you're going to do. You're going to put your name in here, and you don't have to put your last name if you're a female or a male, and you're going to put your birthday, and then your year. That's not a year. And then the hour, and you need your exact time of birth. If you don't have your exact time of birth, this can be completely thrown off. Anyway, you need all of that. The time of birth needs to be here because the ascendant, the descendant, and the midheaven and the nadir, they all move really quickly. So if these planets that we have here, you can see all of these planets up here, if they're connected to the IC, the AC, the IC, the IC, that's going to move if I move myself within, 10 minutes in my birth time. So it's really important to know. And if you don't know your birth time, I'd suggest you start getting to rectifying your chart. You're not helpless if you don't know it. You can rectify it. And if that's a video you'd like to see on how to rectify your chart, I can make that for you as well. So leave me a comment. Now, this is how this is going to look for you once you get your entire information in here. And you can go up and get out of the scalable map and say go to Europe, the Middle East, Central America. They got the whole continent bar, whatever. And then we're gonna click on North America because that's me and where I live. So you can see that if I click Los Angeles right here, it's where I am. I have crossing Jupiter and Saturn. Now, here's something that's important. is that you go on astro.com, they're going to give you all of this information. So you don't even need this video. Just stop watching this video right away because you really don't. You just click and it's fine. But I have read a few charts in my time and I've been studying for a long time. So I don't use these as much anymore. I have my own ideas of the best places for astrocartography and where to move. So I don't need to go and explain to you the summary of what that energy means. I want to explain to you what I personally know about that energy. What I personally know, what I've seen through my decade plus years, so that it might help you feel a little bit better about choosing where you live or travel to. I am going to go through all of the planetary lines as I see them. But before that, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit what each line means, because sometimes, like I said, you could be on your Pluto line, but it might be on the rising, it might be on the midheaven, it might be on the descendant. So if you are in a planetary line that falls on your ascendant or your rising, those are the two names for it, this is a very personal place for you. You will be the most personally influenced by the energy, and it will actually affect your expression. If you are finding your planetary line on the midheaven or the medium coli, this is your self-perception and your place in this world. It also represents more of your career goals and who you see yourself as in this world. It can also be external influences from the masses. Now say it is your descendant. Your descendant is about relationships and external influences of others in your sphere. This is how you interact with others. Now, if it's your imum coli or your nadir, this is your truest self. This is going to get you at your root. This is going to pull you down as well. If you are going somewhere for career goals, I would suggest going towards something that was based more on your ascendant or your midheaven. If it's more personal or relational, then I would suggest finding a line that is on your descendant or your nadir. But you don't have to listen to me at all. Sometimes when you go places, you experience something different than even what I'm saying because of the way that your birth chart is. For instance, I had my Venus line when I lived in Austin, Texas, but Venus was on my descendant. I got married and I had 2 children there, but I also started my career as an astrologer and I had my Saturn return there. I came into my own as a person there. So Venus did affect me personally, even though it was opposite my rising. But the things that happened to me weren't necessarily directly related to my actions alone. I didn't make babies by myself and I didn't get married by myself. Also, I didn't personally walk into being an astrologer as a career. It was more like given to me. With all of these planets, try to see if you can envision how that energy falls. If it's the closest to you, if it's in your roots, if it's affecting you personally and it's just decisions you're making, like your rising, or if it's external, like your midheaven or your descendant. With all of that being said, let's start off with the first planet, the sun. The sun's not a planet, but it is in astrology. Now with the sun, it is a shining bright luminary. This doesn't mean that all things are great, although it might feel like that for a spell. The reason being is that you can actually get very detached in a sun situation because you are not in a moon situation. The sun is about experiencing positivity, and sometimes that means that you can totally neglect your physical self or your emotions in this area. You definitely would come into something that felt like your purpose or that would fulfill your ego needs, but you would also need to learn balance, patience, or temperance in this area, that you don't overindulge your ego or your body. You can experience avoidance in this area, avoidance of self, obviously, or that you're even in an impasse, experiencing some form of stagnation. However, collaborations and creativity, enjoyment, celebrations are relevant here. But as you know, sometimes too much collaborations, too much celebrations, too much partying can cause you to avoid the things that really matter. And so in this sense, it can be a really great place to put yourself up on a pedestal, but if that's not the energy that you need right now, it can be exhausting. Okay, now for the moon. Now the moon is the second luminary, it's the reflective luminary. So when you live in the moon, the biggest moon thing that I've seen is the cycle of repetitive behavior. If you're in moon energy, you repeat like almost like a robot. The same that the moon is going through cycles every month, so are you under her supervision. So when you're in her energy, you're also experiencing these cycles. This is great for mastery through repeating tasks. You really do leave that energy like, I am a true proficient now, because I've done this so many times, one after another. The biggest thing is skill development. You are more skilled after you leave the moon energy. Now, the moon energy can also be pretty emotional, but I haven't actually seen or experienced people having these heightened emotions where they're crying all the time. Usually it's about experiencing everything, experiencing all the things that are real around you. And in that sense, it can actually really help you with career goals, especially with, and I can't stress this enough, the mastery of your skills. Skill development is key where the moon is. The moon is very good for manifestation. The thing about manifesting something is that when you truly believe it, when it is belief at your core in your emotions start steering your head to believe it as well. There can be some spiritual poverty there. It's very self-indulgent time for you. Mercury. Now, Mercury has a lot of energy because Mercury rules communication, correct? But the thing with too much Mercury, we like to call a paralysis of analysis. This can be a lot of blocking and jealousy of what other people have. Sometimes you can go through withdrawal from other people, isolation, and a lot of excess contemplation, being alone in one's thoughts. This is why it's good if you're trying to put thoughts on paper, but if you're trying to communicate your thoughts with others, you might actually feel you have a hard time. There's so much energy, it can't always be that easy for you to express yourself to other people. Something that you will be going through there is a lot of reevaluation of your purpose, of why you're here, why you're living on Earth, a lot of those sort of existential thoughts. This can lead to even apathy. Does anything matter? I feel like it's a very good place to go if you want to, say, get out your thoughts, write them down, spend some time as almost a hermit, or if you want to experience an active or overactive imagination. I feel that the Mercury line is a really good place to spend on a vacation, or if you were to study abroad in Mercury, that could be more exciting for you. Okay, Venus. If you're in a Venus line, you might actually be experiencing a lot of childhood memories, or revisiting the past, or having the past come visit you. You'll experience a lot of creativity and actually even a lot of childlike freedom, a desire for freedom. You know, Venus is wild, and so there is this idea that you have limitless potential to create and to get things done that please you. When you're actually immersed in this energy, the peacefulness of it can be grating to the point that you actually create problems that might not actually be there. You will experience a lot of joy and a lot of freedom of expression and inspiration under a Venus line, which is why a lot of astrologers and astrocartography experts say that your Venus line is one of the best places to be as far as blessings are concerned. And like I said in the beginning, I did get married under this line, and I did have 2 of my children, and I did start my career. All really very beautiful things that I've been blessed with, and that no matter where I go, they are still with me and I still get to keep them. So the Venus line will bless you for years to come, even after you've left. Mars. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit. I hate Mars lines. Like I can't stand my Mars line. It's in Denver, Colorado, and it's just the worst. So now that I got that off my chest, in Mars, you can expect some delays because there's a lot of impatience there. You're so impatient, you just want things to happen and you can't. You're met with a sort of wall. There can be a lot of anger and aggression that you're feeling as well, or it could even be directed to you depending on if that line falls on your descendant. You can have a lot of, say, multiple priorities in this situation. You can even feel a little institutionalized, like there's a lot of rules and tradition around you that you're trying to break free of and that you just can't. In a Mars line, you definitely need to practice time management because poor planning can really put a number on you in one of these places, because there's always going to be an issue that arises. And so you want to have a plan A, plan B, plan C to make sure that you can accomplish the things that you want to accomplish under this line. As I said before, you have multiple priorities here. Can you get them all done, or are you going to be bogged down by the weight and then just give up and throw your hands up in the air and rage quit? Mars can be really good for energy though, for physical energy, but sometimes it's hard to be inspired under this line. So if you're really into, say, being more active and more fit, and you are a very good planner, then Mars line could actually be for you. You might enjoy yourself underneath that. And now your Chiron line. Chiron is the wounded healer. Your Chiron line is probably the most spiritual as far as giving you a lot of hope and faith and belief, and that there's something better for you out there. It really reminds me a lot of the song in American Tail, you know, with Feifel, that old cartoon. Somewhere out there, da 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 da, someone's waiting for me and loving me. Definitely under a Chiron line, learning boundaries and trying not to be so easily influenced, although being easily influenced is a trait under Chiron. You can feel a strong insecurity within yourself that makes you feel like maybe you're not worthy, so you could give in to other people's demands of you. And I think that's where that faith and hope comes, that something will save you from there. Ultimately, under the Chiron line, you're learning to save yourself, and sometimes that actually might need you have to leave that area after the work has been done. And after the lessons have been learned, you don't need to keep living in a place where you feel like you are being wounded and healing all the time. So, funny story, I look a little different because I forgot about the North Node. So if you are in the North Node line, this is actually the dragon head, as I've talked about a lot. This is a place where you might feel very unaware of your surroundings and more just focused in on what you can do to achieve your truest goals. Because the North Node feels like destiny, it can make you feel like, I gotta achieve my destiny here, which can make you forget about everything else around you. This can also make you very ambitious and desire a lot of things that maybe don't belong to you or that you really feel do belong to you. It can be a really good time though to meet your expression, to meet that destiny head on, and to figure out what you're really meant to be in this life. If you are in a place of your North Node, it is important to sit back with your own genius South Node energy to anchor yourself and to remember who you are so you don't get lost in external physical battles. Now, what about the Jupiter line? Now, astrologers will pretty much agree across the board that your Jupiter line is your best line, but it doesn't mean that there's not some sense of arrogance and manipulation on your part when you live in your Jupiter line. However, it's very good for manifestation, new opportunities, and abundance. Abundance in your career, abundance financially, abundance in your life. Jupiter is expansion and luck. So it puts a lot of that good energy in you. Not everybody has their Jupiter line like somewhere other than the bottom of the ocean. A lot of people are going to experience a lot of their best lines in the middle of the ocean. And so if that is you, you don't have to worry about not having a Jupiter line. Maybe it's not a life that is meant for you. The biggest thing I think about Jupiter is the inspired action, where a Venus line might make you feel inspired and a Mars line might bring you action. Venus has a hard time jumping into action and Mars has a hard time being inspired. So you could say that almost them together is sort of your Jupiter line. Jupiter being this, I am inspired and now I'm going to go forward and I'm going to bring in what I need and what is best going to serve me just by manifesting it, which is one of the most beautiful parts about the Jupiter line. But it doesn't not mean that everything is going to be great. Sometimes it can actually cause you to gain weight or to even feel like you've moved too quickly, too fast into a situation that you maybe don't want in the end. So if that's the case, Jupiter can be a situation that spirals out of your control. It's not going to be for everybody. Saturn. In your Saturn line, you're going to be learning. The authoritative father teaching you something. And a big thing that you will learn under a Saturn line is how to release your own limiting beliefs and how to detach from your emotions. Under a Saturn line, you can feel very emotional at first, but pretty quickly start to realize that you need to be more objective and to remove yourself from the feelings and the needs of others. It's very much about boundaries and setting up your own empire to build, which can start off pretty hard. Like, are you ready to build this? I'd say if you're going to move into a Saturn line, I wouldn't expect that something is going to be delivered to you right away. After a couple years, you will start to see the immense growth that your hard work has put into. And Saturn will always make sure that that is built on a rock, and that's why it takes so long for things to happen. As opposed to Jupiter, which can be too much too fast, Saturn can almost feel like, this is so slow, I don't know if I can even appreciate it by the time I got it because I worked so hard for it. But in that case, Saturn wants this to be your life. So I actually do respect the Saturn line a lot. A lot of people might be afraid of it. Having gone through 2 years in a Saturn line, I would say that it is completely worth it. You can experience a lot of heartbreak and loss under the Saturn line, but those are always to get you to detach more from your aggressive emotions, if you're like me and have aggressive emotions. Another thing that the Saturn line can do is be a gigantic exploration of your shadow self. So that's something that you might want to think of. You might be looking into your dark side a lot and really pulling out old karma, as well as those, limiting beliefs that you hold deep inside of yourself. Now for the Uranus line. In the Uranus line, you could experience something called spiritual poverty, and that is because Uranus is the highest octave of Mercury. In fact, Uranus carries a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, and sometimes knowing too much can cause you to lose all faith and all hope in something. This also can create something I like to call the energy of the 7 deadly sins, where you start to experience rage, jealousy, lust, sloth. You might actually feel very low energy in your Uranus line, even though your mind is high energy. You have a lot of inspiration, feel like you're onto a lot of scientific discoveries, but your body is lethargic and doesn't care and just wants to pleasure itself. I would go to a Uranus line if you would like to practice inner strength and learn a lot. You're going to receive a lot of information. The one thing that I would always know under the Uranus line is that if you are experiencing a lot of jealousy and a lot of anger, that you would look at yourself and possibly see if you can go and balance yourself up and find some faith, find belief in something, or maybe if it's too much, just move. Because spiritual poverty in and of itself, it doesn't make you not successful, but it definitely takes joy away from your life. Okay, now for your Neptune line. The Neptune line will bring you a lot of inner truth and quiet power. You think about spiritual power. The problem with Neptune is that it removes all boundaries. It dissolves all boundaries. And when you are a physical person, this can be a problem. This can create delusions of grandeur and even narcissism in someone if they're in this energy for too long and they're not using it to fulfill their imagination. It's not a good place to go if you're trying to be a success, because of this. It's very creative, there's a lot of potential, but it can get to a certain point where you're actually not really making things anymore. You're just believing that you could. And once you get there, you're standing on a ledge with nothing to offer, feeling like you've already conquered the world. And that's where the Neptune can really get to you. I don't hate the Neptune line. I know that sounds weird, because I do think that ignorance is bliss and rose-colored glasses are beautiful, which is all things that Neptune brings. But on occasion, you have to be brought back to reality. So if you are in a Neptune line, I would say vacation to a Saturn line or even a Uranus or Mercury line, so that you can get out of the energy that is all confusion and deception. so that you can really see what things are. You could find that even in the Neptune line, there's a lot of conflict with other people that you really have a hard time seeing their side, where they aren't making sense to you and you aren't making sense to them, no matter how hard you try. So practice agreeing to disagree and really always holding on to what you know is the truth of your own situation. There can be some infiltration of boundaries as well. So even in Neptune, which can make and equate to unconditional love, which doesn't actually exist in the physical realm, it can also become unconditional fear. And that's when things go up and down in this energy. So just try to find your own peace and your own balance if you live in the Neptune line and root yourself in reality. Okay, now lastly, we have Pluto. It's little dwarf planet Pluto. Pluto is about breaking cycles. It's about transformation and rebirth. It can also be a lot about ending cycles. If you are in a cycle of self-abuse or self-hatred, going to a Pluto line might seem dark and scary, but it's actually the best place for you to stop that. In addiction, everything, because Pluto gets you to the end. It kills certain things. During this area, you might feel like you're having a lot of bad luck. But something that actually can happen in a Pluto line is a new relationship, karmic, twin flame, soulmate, because Pluto is naturally connecting you to things in past lives as well as your future lives. And so it can get you connected to people that mean a lot to you on a spiritual plane. There's definitely a lot of burdens here, and it's going to be a lot of hard work. Pluto is also a place for power and control. And so in hard work, you can actually gain a good career under this energy, but like Saturn, it would take a lot of time. So thank you guys so much for listening to me talk about astrocartography. If you are interested in discussing this anymore, I do have a topic on my Discord, which you can get to from my Patreon. The link will be in my information section. Also, I want to thank my patrons for making it possible for me to give you a video a day this month. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow with probably another YouTuber chart reading. Thank you guys, and have a lovely day. Bye.